Hello and welcome to my studio space, which as some of you might know is also my bedroom. My bed is here. My poor other half sleeps that side in the tiny side of the room. My name's Jen Gash and I'm an OT and an artist and a coach. This video is all about, particularly about the Kawa model in paint, which is a very personal journey and a personal project that I've been doing for several years now, and I expect probably it'll be an ongoing thing for a very long time. Before I was an occupational therapist, I painted. From about 15, I think, I was fairly obsessed with paint. But I chose a journey into OT for all sorts of reasons, because primarily because I believe that if you're an artist, you are just going to be prone to poverty, struggles and all sorts of challenges, including mental health problems. You know, I had these images of Van Gogh and all that sort of thing. So I opted to, after a few years, to train as an OT because I saw the opportunity to combine creativity with a real job, in inverted commas. But my training in coaching and the work I've been doing with coaching, particularly for the last few years, has brought me very firmly back to OT, but also very, very firmly back to painting. Now, I discovered the Kawa model not sort of around 2006, I think. And at this, I was just about to enter a very difficult time of my life. Around 2007, I had a lot of problems with my well-being. Relationship was in tatters. I had a young family, and my river was. There were huge rocks in my river. There was frothy rapids, you know, searing through these narrow gorges, and my river was further blocked by lots of driftwood and debris. It was a really challenging time, to say the least. And I remember being away, sitting in a curry house up north somewhere. I was doing some training, and I just started to sketch my river. I did a very, very small drawing, which I'll just show you on this sheet. This video is a bit challenged because there we go. This is one of the first drawings I did. We're going to be a bit challenged on this video because I've got all of this material, all of these paintings and drawings all laid out, and some of them I'll just hold up and show you. I have figured out how to insert an image into a video, so every now and then I'll go, and that might mean there's an image coming up. So I don't want to dwell on this particularly difficult period of my life. You can read more about it on my blog page here. Fingers crossed you don't get any interrupted images on that there were a few weeks ago. But suffice to say, my love affair with Kawa had begun, and I spent. I've had these two strands of my painting going alongside for some time. The Kawa project being quite a contained part of my painting work, and all this other stuff that I do with my creativity. But during my period of frothy rapids and difficulties, I attended an exhibition by a local artist called Kurt Jackson, and he has tracked rivers mostly around England, but uses them as a metaphor for life. And I was just like, Kawa in paint, wow. And he paints rivers from their source all the way through to the sea, hundreds of paintings during the course of these rivers. And I was completely captivated by this. And I started to, it was a real turning point in both my well-being and my painting. Now, I would like to say at this point that I work with coaching, that's my main thing. And most of the stuff I'm showing you today is purely my process. It's not work I've done with clients, it's my journey through Kawa. But one of the things that helped me understand my creativity much better was this concept of driftwood, the rubuku, which I never know whether I say right or not, but and I started to understand that you know, if it was being helpful, my creativity would be like the driftwood in the river one way, and if it was blocking, it would be the other way. And I've talked about this quite a lot in various things. But what I started to realise, I really needed to work with my creativity, not against it. And during 2011, I attended some painting workshops and I started to do two things. One, I started to try and do a little drawing of my river. I try to do it every day, but often or not it was every few days. And here's some of the little images that I've been doing. Just to use it as a method of visual journaling, really, about how I was feeling. And it could be all sorts of things. It wasn't necessarily to do with my mental well-being. It might be to do with a piece of work I was doing, or a particular mood I was in, or a particular idea, or just whatever came to mind. But I also, during this 3-day painting course, started to experiment with the shapes that the cross-section of the river particularly gives us, and how I might represent that in paint. So here's some other little images. So we've got the cross-section of the river here. These are monoprints, these top ones. And as you can see, I've started to simplify the Kawa model down into a very kind of representative form here. I also did some playing with maps, which I might share with you and I might not. It's a little bit revealing. I'm going to pause the video and I'm coming back. I'm back. So during these 3 days I really started to, as I say, experiment, working a lot on board and introducing, as you can see, this is the riverbed, and I was simplifying the model down to very much this curve shape with these circles, representing both the rock being a circular form, kind of, but also when driftwood was longitudinal, it looks like a circle as well, sort of long ways. And sometimes there would be some, sometimes there would be very much these kind of log structures as well. So these are all little paintings that I was doing around this time, very much just experimenting with the shapes that the river in its cross section can give us. Now, I was having this kind of game of mental tennis in my mind. You know, at one point I'm sort of painting purely for its own pleasure, and the next minute I think, well, what might this mean in terms of the model, and also what might this mean in terms of my occupation and how my day is flowing, how my life is flowing. So I, you know, at various times I would skip into and out of these different frames of thought, but trying to stick as much as I can just to the experience of painting this interesting form. And it might be occurring to you that there's, you know, this is kind of borderline art therapy stuff for me anyway. And there's all sorts of things this throws up, really. One, that art therapy actually came from occupational therapy. As a profession, art therapy was, you know, certainly in the UK, was always under the umbrella of OT. It was only about 40 years ago that art therapy broke away from OT. So I don't have a problem owning this type of activity that I do and calling it OT, not in the slightest. But I do. There's also something about, you know, if we're working with patients this way, are we doing art therapy or are we doing OT? Now, I'm not sort of up for answering that question in this video, apart from the fact that I've only got 12 minutes and I clearly want to talk about myself as much as possible and my work. But ultimately, what I feel this process of making an image, whether it's a flat 3D image in pencil or paint or somehow, or whether it's a river in collage or using logs and actually going to a river and making something in real life, we know that the model lends itself to all kinds of exploration, and there's been lots of research done over the last few years about embodied metaphor and actually the process of being in the metaphor and using it to help unpick things. So not just drawing a river, but actually, you know, going to a river, mapping out a river with logs and water and things. So one of the things that I feel very strongly about is that we can use all sorts of tools to help ourselves and our clients understand barriers to occupation and things that they find meaningful. So in terms of doing this work, for myself, I always felt I was doing both. I was exploring the bigger picture, if you like, you know, what things were blocking me in my life, what areas were flowing well and where I should focus on in my work and home activities and occupations. but also in the process of making something. You know, I'm employed in a meaningful activity itself. So we know as OTs there's meaningful activity and helpful stuff going on at all sorts of different places in this process. So I'm just going to show you a few more pictures. These are some small images that are actually behind glass. They might be a bit of a reflection. A combination of collage and paint. There you go. And you'll see some quite large images behind as well. There's this is quite a figurative representation at the back here, this big orange square painting, with some really big bits of driftwood blocking across the whole thing. And that's kind of more where my work in this Kawa project is going. It's going back to quite representational images and away from the quite conceptual model shapes. But we also have these rather large, I say they're reasonably large, collage and acrylic paint works, which, as I say, there's never an end point with painting. It just carries on. It's very difficult to say things finished. And another painting here. And I mean, you can see very clearly, you know, the starting point for this model. So, there's not much more to show you. Oh, there is one more picture which I'm really pleased with. This particular one, which again is collage and paint. We've got some gold here which are in the rocks. And interestingly, even as I'm talking to you, having chosen to do the rocks, the obstacles in gold, from a coaching point of view is fascinating, because there's a lot of discussion about the obstacles actually being the way through, rather than being blocks, that they're opportunities. They're teaching, you know, they're teaching things. They teach us so much about ourselves. So I'm just interested to realise that I've done them in gold. So I think I'm done. There is so much more I could show you, and there is a link, as I say, to one of my website pages where there's a little bit more about the journey, and you'll also see some other images. But what I think I'll do is, once I stop talking, I'll insert some static images at the end so you get a better look at some of the work I've just shown you, because I have kind of bombarded you with pretty much 3 or 4 years work in the space of 12 minutes. So enjoy watching the video and whatever else you're doing today, and thank you for listening. Bye.